The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Hundreds of species sat in floating platforms that moved slowly around the central speaking area. The air shimmered with translation fields that turned every word into sounds each species could understand. Commander Zixthera stood at the center podium, her forearms spread wide as she addressed the gathered representatives. Her blue skin had the deep markings that showed her high rank in the Velthari Empire. Around her, creatures of every shape and size listened with varying degrees of attention. For 3,000 years, our Federation has brought peace to this galaxy, Zixthera said, her voice carrying clearly through the massive chamber. We have ended wars, shared technology, and created the greatest alliance in known history. Approving sounds came from the audience. Some species clicked their claws, others hummed in harmony, and a few made chirping noises that meant agreement in their languages. Today marks another year of this great peace, the commander continued. Another year without the chaos that once plagued our worlds. In the back of the hall, Dr. Kethamol shifted uncomfortably on his floating platform. The old researcher had heard these same words every year for decades, but lately something about them felt wrong. His 6 eyes focused on a data pad in his hands, filled with information that kept him awake at night. Kethmol was what other species called a seeker. His people, the Mordani, were born with an intense need to find truth. It made them excellent scientists and terrible dinner guests, as they could not stop asking questions even during meals. However, Zixthera continued, we must always remember the lessons of the past. In our archives we find stories of a species called humans. These tales speak of beings who could survive anywhere and solve any problem. Of course, we know these are just myths created by primitive minds trying to explain things they could not understand. Scattered laughter echoed through the hall. Most species found the old human legends amusing. Stories of creatures who could live on frozen worlds and burning deserts, who could breathe different gases and eat almost anything. Tales of beings who could make enemies into friends and find solutions where none seemed possible. Such creatures could never have existed, Zixthera said with a smile. The laws of biology make such adaptability impossible. No single species could master so many different environments. Kethmol's hands tightened on his datapad. He wanted to stand up and shout, but he knew no one would listen. Not yet. He needed more proof. After the ceremony ended, the platform slowly moved toward the exits. Species began talking among themselves, making plans for trade deals and cultural exchanges. The hall filled with the buzzing sound of hundreds of conversations. Kethmol guided his platform toward the research section of the station. His laboratory was small compared to others, tucked away in a corner where few visitors ever came. The walls were covered with star maps, artifact photos, and data charts that would confuse most people. He set his datapad on the main table and activated a holographic display. Images of strange objects filled the air around him. Metal tools that no known species had made. Buildings with architectural styles that matched no current civilization. Technology that worked on principles the Federation had never mastered. Computer, show me the timeline again, Kethmol said. A long line of light appeared in the air, marked with dates and locations. Red dots showed where he had found human artifacts. The pattern was clear to him, but others refused to see it. Every single artifact site had gone dark exactly 3,000 years ago. Right when the Federation had been formed. It was too much of a coincidence. The door to his lab opened with a soft hiss. Kethmol turned to see his assistant, Yexara, entering with a cup of the bitter drink that kept him alert during long research sessions. She was young for a Mordani, with bright purple skin and only 4 eyes instead of the 6 that developed with age. The council members are talking about you again, she said, handing him the cup. They say you waste too much time on old stories. Kethmol drank deeply before responding. Stories are how we remember truth, Yexara. Sometimes the only truth that survives. But surely if humans were real, we would have found more evidence by now. Bones, DNA, something concrete. Maybe we have found it, Kethmol said quietly. Maybe we just do not recognize it for what it is. He moved to another display, showing photos from his latest expedition to the Void Sector. Most species avoided that region, claiming it was empty space with nothing worth finding. But Cathamol had detected strange energy readings there. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a fuzzy image. "These readings do not match any known technology. The energy patterns are completely different from anything in our databases." Yexara studied the image with her 4 eyes. It could be natural phenomena, strange radiation from old stars. Or it could be something hidden, something that does not want to be found. Before Yexara could respond, the communication system in the lab activated. Chancellor Morden's face appeared in the air, his expression stern. The Chancellor was a Thexani, a species known for their logical minds and complete lack of humor. "Dr. Cathamol," the Chancellor said, "I have received reports about your recent research requests. You have asked for permission to explore restricted sectors again." "Yes, Chancellor. The Void Sector shows promising readings that could lead to important discoveries. The Void Sector is restricted for good reasons. It is dangerous and empty. I cannot approve expeditions based on your theories about mythical creatures." Cathamol felt his frustration growing. "Chancellor, with respect, these are not just theories. The evidence clearly shows. The evidence shows nothing but your imagination," Morden interrupted. "You are a skilled researcher, Doctor, but you have become obsessed with fairy tales. I suggest you focus on more practical projects." The communication ended, leaving Cathamol staring at empty air. Yexara watched him with concern. "Maybe he is right," she said softly. "Maybe you should work on something else for a while." Cathamol turned back to his displays, studying the patterns that had consumed his thoughts for years. "The truth does not change because people refuse to see it, Yexara. Humans were real. They were here. And something happened to them 3,000 years ago. But what could have happened to an entire species, especially one as adaptable as the legends claim? I do not know yet, but I intend to find out." That night, after Yexara had gone home, Cathamol sat alone in his lab. The station was quiet around him, most of its inhabitants asleep. He pulled up his private files, the ones he had never shown anyone else, hidden in the deepest archives. He had found references to something called the Great Silence, brief mentions in very old texts, always incomplete or damaged, but the timing matched perfectly with the disappearance of human artifacts. Computer, search for any mention of Great Silence in all available databases. Search complete. No results. Found in approved databases. Search restricted archives. Authorization code Cathamol 77 Alpha. Access denied. Insufficient clearance level. Cathamol leaned back in his chair. Someone had classified information about the Great Silence at the highest levels. Someone did not want people asking questions about what had happened 3,000 years ago. But Cathamol was a seeker. Questions were what he lived for. He began making plans for an unauthorized expedition to the Void Sector. If the Chancellor would not give him permission, he would find another way. The truth was out there, hidden in the darkness between stars, and he would find it no matter what the cost. 3 weeks later, Cathamol stood on the bridge of a small research ship called the Truth Seeker. He had bought the vessel with his own money, using funds saved over decades of careful living. The ship was old but reliable, with enough range to reach the Void Sector. Yexara worked at the sensor station, her 4 eyes focused on the displays. "I still think this is a bad idea," she said for the 10th time that day. "If the Chancellor finds out we left Federation space without permission, then we better find something worth the risk," Cathamol replied, checking their course. The Void Sector lay ahead of them, a region of space that appeared empty on all official star charts. But Cathamol's sensors told a different story. As they got closer, strange readings began appearing on their screens. Energy signatures that did not match anything in their databases. Gravity distortions that suggested something massive hidden in the darkness. "Doctor," Yexara said, her voice excited, "I am detecting artificial structures ahead. But that is impossible. The charts show nothing but empty space." Cathamol moved to her station and studied the readings. His 6 eyes widened as he understood what they were seeing. It is not empty space, Yexara. Someone has hidden it. Ahead of them, what looked like a natural nebula began to shimmer and change. Colors shifted in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The ship's computer began making warning sounds. Cloaking field detected, the computer announced. Technology unknown. No match in databases. Take us closer, Kethmal ordered. But slowly. If this is a defensive system, I do not want to trigger it. As they moved forward, the nebula continued to change. Slowly, like a curtain being pulled away, it revealed what lay hidden behind it. Both researchers gasped at what they saw. A massive space station floated in the void, larger than any structure the Federation had ever built. Its design was unlike anything in their records. Smooth curves mixed with angular sections in a way that seemed both alien and strangely familiar. By the ancient gods, Yexara whispered. How long has this been here? Kethamol was already scanning the station with every sensor they had. The readings made his hands shake with excitement. According to the metal decay analysis, this station is at least 3,000 years old, maybe older. 3,000 years, but it means we have found them, Yexara. We have found proof that humans were real. The station showed no signs of life, but its power systems were still active. Docking ports along its surface looked designed for ships much different from current Federation vessels. Kethamol guided the Truth Seeker to what looked like a maintenance bay. Are you sure this is safe? Yexara asked as they prepared to board the station. Nothing about this is safe, Kethamol admitted. But some discoveries are worth the risk. The airlock cycled, and they stepped onto the station. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls. The air was breathable but tasted old, like it had been recycling for centuries without fresh input. Their footsteps echoed in corridors that seemed designed for beings roughly their size. Signs on the walls were written in symbols that their translators could not read, but the shapes seemed familiar somehow. The architecture is fascinating, Yexara observed, running her hands along a wall panel. It follows design principles we use in Federation construction, but the execution is completely different. They found their way to what looked like a central data core. Banks of storage devices lined the walls, their surfaces dark but not dead. Kethmal connected his portable analysis unit to one of the access ports. Incredible, he breathed as data began flowing across his screen. The storage capacity is enormous. These systems could hold the entire history of a civilization. Can you access the files? I am trying. The security is unlike anything I have seen, but it is not trying to keep us out. It is more like it is waiting for the right person to ask the right questions. Hours passed as Kethamol worked to unlock the station's secrets. Yexara explored other sections, finding living quarters designed for bipedal beings, laboratories with equipment they could not identify, and viewing ports that looked out at the stars. Finally, Kethmal succeeded in accessing the main database. Information flowed across his screens in languages his computer slowly learned to translate. What he read changed everything he thought he knew about galactic history. Yexara, he called, his voice shaking. You need to see this. She hurried back to the data core, where holographic displays now filled the air around them. Star charts showed the galaxy as it had existed thousands of years ago. Trade routes connected hundreds of worlds. Diplomatic records detailed treaties between species, and at the center of it all were humans. They were not just another species, Kethmal said, reading from the files. They were the peacekeepers, the mediators. When conflicts arose between other species, humans stepped in to find solutions. The records painted a picture of humans as natural diplomats and problem solvers. They had established the first galactic trade networks, created the original universal translator technology, and developed methods for helping different species understand each other. Look at this, Yexara said, pointing to a medical file. Their biology was incredibly adaptable. They could modify their metabolism to survive in different environments, change their sleep cycles to match different day lengths, even adjust their digestive systems to process foods from various worlds. That explains the legends, Kethmal realized. They really could live anywhere and eat almost anything, but it was not magic. It was advanced biological engineering. More files revealed the scope of human influence. They had helped dozens of species develop space travel, mediated territorial disputes that could have led to galactic wars, created educational exchanges that spread knowledge throughout the galaxy. They were like galactic teachers, Yexara said in wonder, helping younger species grow and learn. But as they read deeper into the files, the tone began to change. Records from the final years spoke of growing tensions. Some species had begun to resent human influence. Trade disputes escalated into political conflicts. Here, Kethmol said, pointing to a file dated exactly 3,000 years ago. A coalition of species demanded that humans withdraw from galactic affairs. They claimed human involvement was preventing natural development. What did the humans do? According to this, they tried to negotiate. They offered to reduce their presence gradually, to train local mediators to take over their roles. But the coalition wanted immediate withdrawal. The final entries in the database painted a dark picture. The coalition had issued ultimatums. Trade embargoes were established against human colonies. Diplomatic immunity was revoked. And then the record stopped. The last entry mentions something called the Great Silence, Kethmol said, his voice barely above a whisper. It says the humans chose to withdraw completely rather than fight a galactic war. But where did they go? A species does not just disappear. Before Kethmol could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Red lights flashed and automated announcements played in the unknown human language. What is happening? Yexara asked, looking around nervously. Kethmol checked his portable scanner. Something is approaching the station. Multiple ships moving fast. They ran to the nearest viewing port and looked out into space. A fleet of Federation vessels was emerging from hyperspace, led by a massive Velthari warship. It is Commander Sixthera, Kethmol said, recognizing the ship's design. Someone told her where we went. Are we in trouble? Probably. But we have what we came for. Kethmol began downloading as much data as possible from the station's computers. Whatever happens next, the truth about humans will not stay buried. As the Federation fleet surrounded the ancient station, Kethmol wondered what other secrets lay hidden in the void. If humans had really chosen to withdraw from galactic affairs, where had they gone? And more importantly, were they still out there, somewhere watching and waiting? Commander Zixithara's ship docked with the human station 3 hours later. Her security team moved through the corridors with weapons ready, but they found no resistance. Kethmol and Yexara waited in the data core, surrounded by holographic displays still showing the truth about galactic history. Dr. Kethmol, Zixithara said as she entered the chamber, her forearms crossed in a gesture of authority. You have violated Federation law by entering restricted space without authorization. I have found the truth, Kethmol replied, standing straighter despite his fear. Humans were real, Commander. They were here. They built this station and dozens of others like it. Zixithara looked around at the displays, her expression unreadable. These could be fabrications, ancient propaganda from a species that wanted to seem more important than they were. Look at the data yourself, Kethmol challenged. Use your own analysis equipment. The files are authentic, dating back thousands of years. The technology in this station is beyond anything the Federation has achieved. Despite herself, Zixithara was curious. She had heard Kethmol speak at council meetings many times. He was obsessive and sometimes annoying, but he was not a liar. She signaled her team to begin their own scans of the station. Even if these files are real, she said, it changes nothing. Humans are gone. The Federation has brought peace to the galaxy without them. Have we? Kethmol asked, bringing up recent conflict reports. The quantum plague killed millions last year. The void wraiths attack our outer colonies regularly. 3 species are on the edge of war over mining rights in the Centauri system. Where is this peace you speak of? Yexara watched the exchange nervously. She had never seen her mentor challenge a military commander so directly. But the data they had found seemed to give Kethmol new confidence. Problems exist in any civilization, Zixithara said. but we handle them through proper channels. We do not need mythical peacekeepers to solve our difficulties. Then why are the solutions getting harder to find? Kethamol activated another display. Look at the patterns, Commander. Every major crisis in the last 1,000 years has lasted longer and caused more damage than similar problems in the past. The display showed comparative data on conflicts, diseases, and disasters. The trends were clear. Modern Federation responses took longer, cost more resources, and often failed to address root causes. Humans did not just solve problems, Kethamol continued. They taught other species how to solve problems. When they left, we lost more than peacekeepers. We lost teachers. One of Zixthara's security officers approached with a data pad. Commander, our scans confirm the doctor's findings. This technology is authentic and ancient. Some of these systems are still more advanced than our current models. Zixthara studied the report, her expression growing troubled. How is that possible? Technology should advance over time, not regress. Unless the most advanced knowledge was lost when its creators disappeared, Kethamol suggested. For the first time, doubt crept into Zixthara's voice. Even if you are right about humans existing, what does it matter now? They chose to leave. The galaxy moved on without them. Did they choose to leave? Kethamol asked quietly. Or were they forced out? Before Zixthara could respond, another officer called from across the chamber. Commander, you need to see this. I found something in the restricted database sections. They gathered around a new display showing files that required higher clearance to access. Zixthara entered her military authorization codes, and the data unlocked. What they saw made everyone in the room fall silent. The files detailed a coordinated campaign against human influence in the galaxy, not just political opposition, but active sabotage. Human colonies had been attacked by unknown raiders. Human ships had suffered mysterious technical failures. Human diplomats had been assassinated by random criminals. This cannot be real, Zixthara whispered, but her hand shook as she read the reports. The conspiracy had involved dozens of species, all working together to eliminate human presence in the galaxy. They had used biological weapons designed specifically to target human physiology. They had destroyed human settlements and erased records of human achievements. The Great Silence was not a choice, Kethamol said, his voice heavy with sadness. It was genocide. Yexara pointed to a list of species involved in the conspiracy. Commander, look at these names. The Velthari Empire, the Thexani Collective, the Mordun Dynasty. These are the founding members of the current Federation. Zixthara stared at the list, seeing her own people's name at the top. No. The Velthari are honorable warriors. We would never participate in genocide. The files are clear, Kethamol said gently. Your ancestors saw humans as a threat to their expansion plans. They convinced other species that humans were holding them back from their true potential. More files revealed the full scope of the conspiracy. The coalition had not just attacked humans directly. They had also systematically destroyed evidence of human achievements, rewriting history to make it seem like the Federation's founding members had developed everything themselves. The Universal Translator, Yexara said, reading from another file. The hyperspace navigation system, the atmospheric processors we use on new colonies. Humans invented all of these things. We just took credit for them. Zixthara felt sick. Her entire worldview was crumbling around her. If this is true, then everything we believe about our history is a lie. Not everything, Kethamol said. The Federation has achieved good things, but we built our civilization on the grave of another species. A new alarm began sounding, different from the station's automated warnings. Zixthara's communication officer reported incoming messages from Federation Command. Commander, we are receiving priority signals from the Council. Chancellor Mordun wants to speak with you immediately. Zixthara accepted the transmission, and Mordun's face appeared in the air. His usual calm expression was replaced by obvious anger. Commander, you were ordered to arrest Dr. Kethamol and return him to Council. Space Why are you still at that station? Chancellor, we have made discoveries that require investigation. The historical records here are fabrications, Morden interrupted. Ancient propaganda designed to discredit the Federation. You will destroy that station and return immediately. Destroy it? Zixthara was shocked. Chancellor, this is an archaeological treasure. The technology alone could advance our understanding by centuries. The station is dangerous. It could contain weapons or diseases that threaten Federation security. I am ordering its immediate destruction. Kethmal stepped forward. Chancellor, you cannot destroy the truth. People have a right to know their real history. Morden's eyes focused on the researcher with obvious hatred. Dr. Kethmal, you are under arrest for violations of Federation security law. Commander Zixthara, if you do not follow orders immediately, you will be charged with treason. The transmission ended, leaving the group in stunned silence. Zixthara looked around at the evidence surrounding them, then at her security team. She could see doubt in their faces too. Commander, one of her officers said quietly, what are your orders? Zixthara stared at the displays showing the truth about galactic history. Her people had been taught that they were heroes, founders of galactic peace. Learning that they were actually participants in genocide changed everything. Download everything, she said finally. Copy every file, every record, every piece of evidence. If the Chancellor wants to destroy this station, we cannot stop him. But the truth will survive. Commander, Yixara asked, what will you do with the information? Zixthara thought about her duty to the Federation, about the loyalty she had, sworn to the Council. Then she thought about the real history they had discovered, about the species that had been erased from memory. I am going to share it, she said. The galaxy deserves to know what really happened 3,000 years ago. As her team worked to copy the station's database, Zixthara wondered if they were too late. The conspiracy had hidden the truth for 3 millennia. Would anyone believe them now? And somewhere in the back of her mind, a disturbing question began to form. If humans had really been as adaptable and resourceful as the records claimed, would genocide have been enough to stop them completely, or were they still out there somewhere waiting for the right moment to return? The truth spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Kethmal and Zixthara had managed to transmit the copied files to contacts throughout Federation space before Chancellor Mordoon could stop them. Within days, the evidence was being discussed on every world in every language. On the industrial planet of Karaswar, factory workers stopped their machines to listen as someone read the files aloud. The revelation that their ancestors had participated in genocide sparked heated debates in the worker dormitories. On the academic world of New Thessia, university professors called emergency meetings to discuss the implications. Students organized protests demanding that their curriculum be updated to include the real history of galactic civilization. Even on the peaceful farming colonies of the Outer Rim, families gathered around communication devices to hear the latest revelations about human achievements that had been stolen and rebranded. Chancellor Morden tried desperately to control the situation. He declared the files to be enemy propaganda and ordered all copies destroyed. But it was too late. The information had already spread too far to contain. In the depths of the council chambers, Morden met with other senior officials to plan their response. The room was filled with representatives from the species that had founded the Federation, all descendants of the original conspiracy. The situation is contained, insisted General Korthax of the Hegemony Worlds. A few radical groups believe these fabrications, but most citizens remain loyal to the Federation. Contained? Morden's voice rose in anger. Half the galaxy is questioning our authority. Trade routes are disrupted because species refuse to honor agreements made by genocidal governments. Our credibility is shattered. Admiral Vexoni of the Stellar Navy leaned forward. We could declare martial law, arrest the dissidents, restore order through force, and prove their point about us being tyrants. Mordoon shook his head. No. We need a different approach. Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station, Emergency lights flashed as automated systems announced an unscheduled arrival in Federation space. "Sir?" A communication officer called from his station. "We are detecting ships emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system. The designs do not match any known vessels." Morden and his advisors rushed to the main observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see points of light appearing in the darkness. As the ships came closer, their details became visible. The vessels were unlike anything in the Federation fleet. They combined smooth, organic curves with angular technological sections. Their hulls seemed to shimmer with energy fields that bent light around them. Most disturbing of all, they matched the ship designs shown in the ancient human files. "Impossible," General Korthax whispered. "Humans are extinct. We made sure of that." But even as he spoke, more ships continued to appear. Dozens became hundreds, then thousands. The fleet was massive, dwarfing anything the Federation could assemble. On worlds throughout the galaxy, people stopped what they were doing to stare at the sky. The human ships appeared everywhere at once, positioned at the edge of every major star system. They made no aggressive moves, but their presence was unmistakable. Then came the transmission. Every communication device in the galaxy activated simultaneously. Personal communicators, planetary broadcast systems, ship radios, even emergency beacons, all received the same signal. The technology required to coordinate such a transmission was beyond anything the Federation possessed. A human voice spoke in the ancient diplomatic language that translation systems had learned from the recovered files. The words appeared as text in every known language, ensuring that every being in the galaxy could understand the message. "People of the galaxy," the voice said, calm but filled with authority, "we are the children of those you tried to erase. For 3,000 years we have watched from the spaces between stars. We have seen your struggles, your conflicts, your pain. We have waited for the truth to emerge." On the Federation capital world, crowds gathered in public squares to listen. The human voice continued without pause or interference. "We are not here for revenge. We are here because the galaxy bleeds and our vigil ends today. You have forgotten how to heal the wounds between species. You have lost the knowledge of true peace. We return now to teach what was forgotten." Chancellor Morden activated the Federation's most powerful transmitters and tried to broadcast his own message, but the human signal somehow blocked all other communications. Their technology had advanced far beyond what the ancient records showed. "We know some of you fear us," the human voice continued. "Your leaders will tell you we come as conquerors. But observe our actions, not their words. We bring no weapons of war. We offer only the gifts we have always given: understanding, cooperation, and hope." Across the galaxy, the human ships began transmitting detailed information. Medical knowledge that could cure diseases the Federation had struggled with for centuries, agricultural techniques that could feed hungry worlds, environmental restoration methods that could heal damaged planets. Dr. Kethmol, now under house arrest on the council station, watched the broadcasts with tears in his 6 eyes. "They kept their word," he told Yexara, who had been imprisoned with him. "They withdrew to preserve peace, but they never stopped caring about the galaxy." How did they survive? Yexara wondered. The files showed that the biological weapons should have killed them all. "Human adaptability," Kethmol said with admiration. "They found a way to overcome even targeted genocide, and they used the time to become something greater than they were before." The human transmission continued with a demonstration that left the entire galaxy speechless. Long-range sensors detected a massive disturbance at the edge of known space. The Void Wraiths, an alien species that had plagued the galaxy for centuries, were launching their largest invasion ever. The Void Wraiths were creatures of dark energy that consumed matter and converted it to pure entropy. They had destroyed dozens of worlds over the years, and no Federation weapon could stop them effectively. Previous encounters had ended only when the Wraiths chose to withdraw to their unknown dimension. But this time, instead of fleeing or fighting, the human ships moved to intercept the invaders. What happened next defied all understanding of physics and warfare. The humans did not attack the Void Wraiths. Instead, they began transmitting complex patterns of energy and information. To the amazement of every observer, The void wraiths stopped their advance and began responding with their own patterns. "They are communicating," Zixathera said from her cell in the detention center. She had been arrested for refusing to destroy the human station. Somehow the humans are talking to them. For hours the exchange continued. Patterns of energy flowed between the human ships and the void wraiths in what could only be described as a conversation. Finally, the dark creatures began to withdraw, but not in their usual aggressive manner. They moved slowly, almost carefully, as if they had learned something important. The human voice returned to the galactic communication network with an explanation that would change everything. "The beings you call void wraiths are not invaders," the voice announced. "They are refugees from a dying dimension, attacking out of desperation and fear. We have offered them sanctuary in empty regions of space where they can exist without harming others. The threat they posed is ended." In less than a day, humans had solved a problem that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. They had done it not through superior weapons or technology, but through understanding and compassion. "This is what we offer," the human transmission concluded. "Not conquest, but cooperation. Not dominance, but partnership. We ask only for the chance to serve the galaxy as we once did, as mediators and teachers in the cause of peace." On thousands of worlds, billions of beings looked up at the human ships and wondered what would happen next. The Federation government was in chaos, its authority undermined by the revelation of historical lies and the demonstration of human capabilities. Chancellor Morden stared out at the human fleet, knowing that his old order was ending. But in the back of his mind, a small voice wondered if this change might not be the disaster he had feared. Perhaps it was time for the galaxy to remember what real peace looked like. Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching as representatives from across the galaxy requested meetings. Her ship, called the New Horizon, was a marvel of technology developed during humanity's 3,000-year exile. But to her, the most important feature was the conference room where species could meet safely to discuss their future. Sarah was tall and graceful, with the kind of presence that made others feel calm even in crisis situations. Her dark skin bore the subtle markings that showed she was a descendant of the original human peacekeeping forces. Like all modern humans, she had been raised with the knowledge of what her people had lost and what they hoped to regain. "Admiral," her communication officer reported, "we have received formal requests for dialogue from over 300 species. The Federation Council has also asked to meet with you." "What about the resistance groups?" Sarah asked. Some species had reacted to humanity's return with fear and hostility, convinced that humans had come for revenge. "Minimal activity. Most have agreed to suspend hostile actions pending the outcome of negotiations." Sarah nodded. This was going better than many humans had hoped. During their exile, there had been debates about whether the galaxy would accept their return. Some had argued that too much time had passed, that the current species would never trust beings whose ancestors they had tried to destroy. But Sarah had always believed in the fundamental goodness of galactic civilization. The conspiracy that had driven humans away had been led by a small group of ambitious leaders, not entire species. "Bring us to the coordinates the Federation provided," she ordered. "It is time to go home." The meeting location was neutral space near the galactic core, far from any territorial claims. As the New Horizon approached, Sarah could see the massive conference station that had been hastily constructed for the negotiations. Hundreds of ships surrounded it, representing every major species in the galaxy. The docking process took hours, as security protocols were established. Many species were still nervous about human technology. Sarah understood their concern and accepted the delays patiently. Finally, she walked through the airlock into the station. The corridor was lined with representatives from dozens of species, all watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to fear to wonder. She moved slowly, making eye contact with as many as possible, showing that humans came in peace. The main conference chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate the various physical needs of galactic species. Atmospheric controls created zones of different air mixtures. Gravity generators provided variable fields for beings from different worlds. Translation fields ensured that every word could be understood by all participants. Chancellor Morden waited at the central podium, his expression unreadable. Beside him stood Dr. Kethamol and Commander Zixthara, both recently released from detention. Sarah smiled when she saw them. Without their courage in revealing the truth, this moment would not have been possible. Admiral Chen Okafor, Morden, said formally, "On behalf of the Galactic Federation, I welcome you to these proceedings." "Thank you, Chancellor," Sarah replied. "On behalf of humanity, I express our gratitude for this opportunity to speak with our galactic neighbors once again." Murmurs ran through the assembled representatives. Many were hearing a human voice in person for the first time in their lives. "Before we begin formal negotiations," Morden continued, "I must ask the question that concerns many of our citizens. Humanity was wronged by our ancestors. Do you come seeking justice for those crimes?" Sarah considered her words carefully. This was the moment that would determine whether the galaxy moved toward peace or conflict. "Justice," she said finally, "is not the same as revenge. Our ancestors were killed, our worlds burned, our achievements stolen. These are facts that cannot be changed. But we did not return to punish the children for the sins of their parents." Relief was visible on many faces in the chamber.
"However," Sarah continued, "true justice requires that wrongs be acknowledged and steps taken to prevent their repetition. We ask for three things: recognition of what was done to our people, integration of true galactic history into educational
systems, and a new framework for governance that prevents any one group from wielding unchecked power." Representative Thexani from the Education Council spoke up. "What do you mean by integration of true history?" "Children across the galaxy are taught that their current leaders developed faster-than-light travel, universal translation, terraforming technology, and dozens of other innovations. But these were human inventions, created to benefit all species. Students should learn who really made these discoveries and why they were shared freely." "And the new governance framework?" asked General Korthax, who had reluctantly agreed to participate in the negotiations. Sarah activated a holographic display showing a complex organizational chart. "A commonwealth instead of a federation. Decisions made by consensus rather than by a ruling council. Rotating leadership that includes all species, with humans serving only as mediators when conflicts arise." "You do not wish to rule?" Morden seemed surprised. "We never wished to rule," Sarah replied. "Our ancestors served as peacekeepers and teachers because they were asked to do so. When that service was no longer wanted, they chose exile rather than force their continued presence on others." Dr. Kethamol stood from his observer seat. "Admiral, may I ask about human survival? The files we discovered suggested that the biological weapons should have been fatal to your species." Sarah smiled at the old researcher who had made this reunion possible. "Dr. Kethamol, you understand the concept of adaptation better than most. When faced with extinction, our people found new ways to survive. We developed resistance to the biological weapons. We created hidden colonies in regions others considered uninhabitable. We built ships that could exist in the void between dimensions. But that would require technology far beyond anything in our databases," Commander Zixthara said. 3,000 years of focused development can accomplish remarkable things," Sarah replied, "especially when a species is fighting for its very existence. We learn to live in artificial pocket dimensions, to survive in the quantum foam between realities, to extract energy from the background radiation of the universe itself." She gestured, and the chamber's displays showed images of human settlements that seemed to exist in impossible locations. Cities floating in the hearts of stars, communities thriving in the space between galaxies, habitats that phased in and out of normal space-time. "We became something greater than we were," Sarah continued, "but we never forgot our original purpose. We watched the galaxy struggle with problems we knew how to solve. We saw species go to war over misunderstandings we could have prevented. We observed plagues and disasters that our knowledge could have stopped. Why did you not return sooner? asked Representative Malari from the Humanitarian Council. Because forcing our help on others was what caused the original conflict. We had to wait until the galaxy was ready to ask for our assistance, until the truth about our past was revealed and accepted. The negotiations continued for days. Detailed discussions covered everything from trade agreements to territorial boundaries to scientific cooperation. Sarah found herself impressed by the dedication of many Federation representatives, even those from species whose ancestors had participated in the original conspiracy. The breakthrough came when Chancellor Mordun himself proposed the framework for transitional justice. His own research into historical records had revealed the full scope of his ancestors' crimes, and he was determined to make amends. The Thexani Collective formally acknowledges our participation in the systematic oppression and attempted genocide of the human species, he announced to the full assembly. We accept responsibility for our actions and pledge to support the establishment of a new galactic order based on truth and cooperation. One by one, other species made similar declarations. The process was painful for many, as leaders confronted uncomfortable truths about their histories, but it was also healing as long-buried guilt was finally acknowledged and addressed. The final agreement established the Galactic Commonwealth, with humans serving as permanent mediators and advisors. A new constitution guaranteed rights for all species and created checks against any group gaining too much power. Most importantly, it established the principle that diversity was strength, and that different perspectives were essential for solving complex problems. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the observation deck of New Geneva Station, humanity's first open settlement since the exile. Through the windows, she could see ships from hundreds of species docking at the facility. Humans worked alongside Velthari engineers, Mordani researchers, and beings from species that had not even existed when her ancestors were driven from the galaxy. Dr. Kethamol approached, carrying a data pad with the latest reports from across the Commonwealth. Admiral, I thought you would want to see this. The quantum plague has been completely eliminated using the medical techniques your people provided. The terraforming of New Kepler is ahead of schedule thanks to human environmental technology. And the trade disputes in the Centauri system have been resolved through mediation protocols based on human diplomatic methods.